All right, there. We just turned the top of the hour. So, as many of you know, we it's been a busy weekend. We launched our new Zenith product on Friday, Thursday, something like that. Friday, I think it was. It was Friday because it was the 10th and it was World Mental Health Day. So we used that day as an opportunity to talk about the future of mental wellness, which I think is going to be all about the gut-brain axis, what we talk about here in the course. Um, and we launched the new Zenith product. So I've gotten a ton of questions about Zenith. So what I thought I would do is answer some of those questions because I'm sure you guys probably have the same sorts of questions. So I've got, let me see, one, two, three, four, five. I've got about a dozen questions here. Some of them overlap with each other, so we might better get through this quicker than a full dozen questions. But if you have questions about Zenith, put them in the chat, and they might link over to some of these ones that I'm going to go through. So what I did was I copied and pasted them all into one document, which I've got up on this screen over here, so I can see what they are. So they're in no particular order, so I'll just start with the first one. Um, it's in a glass bottle. Why glass bottles? People sometimes don't like glass because they can break. Like back in the days when a lot of products came as like super fruit juices. There were acai juices and noni juices and what other mangosteen juices and sea buckthorn juices, and there's all those sorts of things. I don't know if you remember those days where they all came in these sort of like wine bottles. Um, Breakage of those bottles was a big deal, right? Because they were big bottles and they get shipped around and they were heavy and breakage was an issue. These kinds of glass bottles are actually really really sturdy, and when we ship them, well, when we start shipping them in about 2 weeks, all you have to do is put a little piece of bubble wrap around it and put it in a padded envelope, and it's actually pretty easy to ship these things out, and they're pretty safe. But we chose glass because for years, for the last 20 years, I've been trying to get my products out of plastic bottles. And any company that I've ever tried to do this with has said, "Oh, they're going to break. Oh, they're more expensive. Oh, they're heavier." All these like bad excuses of why we couldn't do that. So it never worked from an operations perspective. And now that it's my decision, I decided to put it in glass bottles I mean, it looks cool. I like the way that it looks. But there's some really good reasons to have your product in glass versus plastic. And the first one is microplastics. Even food grade PET bottles and HDPE bottles and like the good plastic. There's better plastics out there. There's some worse plastics out there. Even the good plastics, when you ship them in a UPS truck in Arizona and it's 140 degrees in the back of that truck, that heating up of the plastic is not good for anything. It can release, endocrine disruptors from the plastic into whatever is in there. The plastic is not as stable as glass, especially under heat and light and things like that. So, and we're already exposed to enough microplastics in our environment, so there's no need to do that anymore. So that's the first reason. The material is more stable, and it is a better stability for the whatever the stuff is inside. Glass in particular, and the reason we chose this blue glass is that it can filter out light, which is really bad for polyphenols, is really bad for probiotics, is really bad for a lot of the sort of like living stuff that we have in there. So there's like a stability of the package aspect, but there's also a stability of the stuff that's in there aspect. So that's why we did that. And then the last one, you guys might think that I'm a rabid environmentalist for saying this, but plastic isn't really recyclable, no matter where you live. That's a myth. Glass is recyclable everywhere. It's infinitely recyclable. So, whether you decide to keep this little bottle around or not, you can recycle it wherever you live, and that's a good thing for the planet. So there's that. We did explore the idea of having your first order of Zenith come in a glass bottle. And then the next order, like, if you're on like a subscription sort of a thing, the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one would come in a little envelope because a lot of companies are starting to do that now, which I was really, really intrigued by. But the more that we dug into it and actually looked at the environmental impact of it, it's actually worse to do that So it's better to set, it costs us more, excuse me, to do this, to send a glass bottle every single time, but it's good for all the reasons that I just said. Those little envelopes that you get, which would, the idea is you'd open up the envelope and you would dump the capsules into your glass vessel. So you'd have one cool glass bottle on your shelf or in your cabinet, and you'd refill it every single time. Those little envelopes aren't recyclable, and they're not any cheaper to ship. And they're not that much lighter, so you're not saving on sort of like carbon dioxide emissions or anything like that. So it just didn't make any sense for us to do that, right? It looked nice, I guess. People felt maybe, oh, I'm saving, but you're not saving anything. So we did the numbers and we're like, all right, we're just gonna go with this and do glass, glass, glass. It's sort of better for everybody. So that's the first one. The next question is, and I knew I was going to get this question, so I'm glad somebody asked it early so we can get it out of the way. If you look, oh, good, you're calling me a hippie. I love it. I will take that. Yeah, in the chat. Thankfully, it has a smiley face next to it. The next question, if you look at our supplement facts panel, and if you've gone to the website, you've probably pulled up the supplement facts panel, and I actually showed it on one of my slides on the seminar that we did on Friday. Um, you can look and see all the active ingredients and all that kind of stuff. At the very, very bottom, it'll say other ingredients. So it says plant cellulose. That's the capsule. It's a veggie cap. It says apple fiber. That is the thing that we use to sort of like hold all the ingredients. All these ingredients that you see in here, there's 12 individual items that have to go into that capsule. They're all teeny tiny. They're so concentrated and so purified. They're really, really small. They need something to hold them. And that's what the apple fiber is there for, right? It like sort of like gives the capsule the bulk density so that we can carry those bioactive ingredients into the capsule. So that makes sense. But then that last one doesn't, people have probably never even seen that one before. It says vegetable oil powder. And oils these days are like, as soon as you say oil, people are like, what kind of oil? Where's the oil coming from? Is it seed oil? Is it petroleum oil? What kind of oil is it? So it's not a seed oil, vegetable oil. Um, it actually could be called fruit oil, but that kind of sounds weird. The oil, the fatty acid that we use, comes from a palm fruit. And the reason that we use it is because it serves as kind of like a lubricant for all these ingredients to go through the encapsulating machinery into the capsules so that in every single capsule we get the same amount of polyphenol, the same amount of prebiotic, the same amount of probiotic, the same amount of everything. It really helps for the consistency of capsule to capsule to capsule potency. And so you have to use something. A lot of companies will use like magnesium stearate or something like that. These oils help sometimes they're called flow agents. They help the ingredients flow into the capsules at the best efficiency. And if you don't do that, there's some companies that don't use flow agents. And what ends up happening is you'll get one capsule that might have a lot of the ingredients in it, and you'll have another capsule that has hardly any. So you get inconsistency dose to dose to dose. And the customer experience ends up being, on average, your bottle is probably okay. But on Monday, you might take the supplement and it works really good. And on Tuesday, you take it doesn't work at all because of that inconsistency dose to dose to dose. And something like a vegetable oil powder, in this case, a palm oil fatty acid, um, helps with that efficiency. So, but it's not a seed oil. It's not like we're using, canola or sunflower oil or any of that kind of stuff, which can be problematic if you're getting too many of them, like in processed foods and things like that, because they can upset your sort of inflammatory balance. But that's a whole different thing than what we're using here. Okay. Um, and yeah, Judy brings up a good point here. Without flow agents, you also get a lot of wasted on the line as the weights and machines mess up a lot. And another thing you get is that sometimes things will clump, and so then they have to like stop the machines. They have to clean out everything. They have to restart everything again. It makes it a royal pain in the butt for the manufacturing process, which also has implications for your overall quality and stuff like that. Um, So yeah, so that's why we use that. You don't have to worry about it's not a seed oil or anything like that. Um, if you look at the supplement facts panel, and you look at the probiotic blend, it says 4B, big a capital B. That stands for 4 billion. And then CFU. CFU stands for colony forming units. So when we're measuring probiotics, there's a couple of different ways you can measure the strength, so to speak, of the probiotic blend. And CFU stands for colony forming units. Another way of measuring it is AFUs. And what does AFU stand for? Active fluorescent units or something like that. They basically mean the same thing. It's just differences in how they're counted. Um, we measure ours to be at the end of shelf life. So a lot of companies, because probiotics are living organisms, they don't want to take the chance of it not meeting label claim by the end of shelf life. And so uh, what they do is they'll say 4 billion, if they had 4 billion, they would say 4 billion at time of manufacture, right? Which is fine. Like if the reason we have 4 billion is because 4 billion is the amount that was used in the clinical trials on this blend showing improvements in stress, improvements in mood, improvements in resilience, improvements in sleep quality, all that kind of stuff, right? So we want to have the right amount of the right strains, but we also want to make sure that that amount is there through the whole life of the product. And in order to do that, you have to do things like put it in glass, make sure it's protected from oxygen, protected from light, all that kind of stuff. And our 4 billion is at the end of shelf life, not at time of manufacture. Okay, so that's an important thing, and it's an important distinction. This probiotic, what we call proto-biotic, and other probiotics that are on the market. Okay, so look for that, because if theoretically, if you get something that's 4 billion at time of manufacture, or 3 billion at time of manufacture, or 5 billion at time of manufacture, there's a really good chance, depending on how it's stored and how it's processed and how old it is, that by the end of shelf life, now maybe it has 1 billion because there's been a die off, or maybe there's 0 billion, and it's not going to be as effective as you thought it was. So paying attention to that potency is really important. Um, Here's a question about can the capsules be opened for people who can't swallow pills, and can kids take a half dose? Okay, so let me answer the first one first. Can they be opened? Yes, they can. Um, so they're in a capsule because we could put them in a capsule, right? It's these ingredients are potent enough where we can get the, how do I say this? We can get the clinical efficacious amount in a small dose. And so the I wonder if the whole thing is on here. It's around 950, 1,000 maybe milligrams total in those two capsules. Um, the reason that we can do that is because each individual ingredient is so potent. So some of them you only have to use 25 milligrams. Some of them you only have to use 100 milligrams. Some of them you only have to use 200 milligrams. And you add all of that up, and it can fit in a really, really small space. That's different than a lot of the sort of older, less potent ingredients out there. And prebiotics are a really good example. Most prebiotics, up until recently, up until this, you'd have to give grams of them. And because you have to give so much, it's a large volume of stuff, and you can't put that into a capsule unless you want to give somebody a handful of capsules. And so that's why you would have to put it into a powder. And so you'd get a scoop of powder, or you'd get a stick pack that has 7, 10 grams, whereas this is like less than 2 grams because it's in two capsules. So we put it into a capsule because we could. It makes it convenient. It makes it really easy for people to just go, two capsules, drink a glass of water, you're done. But there's no reason it has to be in capsules. Like, it doesn't have to be in capsules to protect the bacteria. It doesn't have to be in capsules to protect the flavonoids. It doesn't taste all that bad. We could have put it in a drink mix if we wanted to. So you can take it out of the capsules. If you can't swallow capsules, you can open those capsules and dump it into juice, oatmeal or smoothie or like whatever you want. There's no reason you can't do that. The strains of bacteria that we use, these four bifidin strains, are survive stomach acid perfectly fine. So there's no reason we have to protect them. We just do because it's possible, because it's such a small volume of stuff, because it's such high potency. Okay. There was the end of that said, and can kids take a half dose? Um, they can, I guess. So the way I formulated this, Zenith, was to be for adults. So all the clinical trials are done in adults, 18 and over. Um, and like you could make the case of like, all right, kids are stressed out too. Kids need good mental focus. Kids need motivation. Kids need better sleep quality. Kids need better, all the things, right? That Zenith promises. Kids need that too. Teenagers, younger kids. Um, because all the studies are done in adults, it's responsible for me to say it's an adult product. But I'm also a parent, right? I get it that parents are going to look to that and be like, I think maybe I'm going to try it. That's a parent decision. If it were me making the decision as a parent, I've already made this decision. When my kids were young, my kids are old now, right? My kids are in their early 20s. So of course they're going to take this. But when they were younger, we've already used theanine with them. We've already used pine bark with them. We've already used many different probiotic strains and many polyphenol sources and things like that. They're all plant extracts, right? So they're all generally recognized as safe. So me as a parent, I would have no problem giving this to my kids, but that's a decision for the parents. So I'm never gonna market this to children or to teenagers, but I'll market it to the parents. And if the parents decide that that's a good thing for their kid to try, then the rule of thumb that I use is with herbal dosing is half a dose. So if you have someone who's under 18, you say, okay, what's the dose for an 18 or older? What's the dose for an adult? Now let's go half of that for a child or a teenager dose, and let's try that and see how they do. And if they do fine, then the parent can make the determination. Should I increase this dose up to an adult dose, or the kid, is the kid okay with this? Um, the other piece of it is once a child gets to be about 100 pounds, they're more metabolically at that point, more like an adult than they are like a child anymore. So, kids aren't just like small versions of adults. Like their metabolism is different. And so, at that point, you'll say, like, oh, I've got a 14-year-old, but they're 120 pounds. So, metabolically, like chronologically, they're still a child, but metabolically they're actually more like adult at that point. So you would still start with the half dose, and then you could move them up to the adult dose if the parent thought it was okay. All right, so that's it. Like that's a rule of thumb that most people in my work, we use that as a sort of a guideline. Okay, so that parents can make the most informed decision. Okay. Andrea, I see your question in there about Australia. There is a question about that. I'm getting it to it. So I'll save that for a second. Okay. So right along with kids, I had got a whole bunch of questions about, is it okay for kids, which we just covered? Is it okay for pregnant women? Is it okay if you're nursing or lactating or breastfeeding? Um, and it's kind of the same thing. Like none of these ingredients are ever studied during pregnancy. None of them are ever studied during nursing. Um, but based on what we know about them, they're plant extracts. They're probably pretty safe. They've been used for centuries and centuries by millions and millions of people. So they're like, there's your safety study. We have to think of things like this more as foods. Like salad in a pill is kind of a way I like to think of this, versus a lot of people look at that and go, oh, it's in a bottle and it's a pill, so it's a natural pharmaceutical. And I like to look at it differently and say, no, these are nutrients. These are phytonutrients, a lot of them, that just happen to be in a pill. So it's a salad in a capsule versus a natural pharmaceutical. It's a subtly different way of thinking of it, but I think it's an important way of thinking of it. So I'll use myself as an example again. I just told you how I treated my kids when they were younger. Now that they're older and they both have significant others, my wife keeps saying, "When are we going to have grandchildren?" And so I don't want to put that pressure on them on a recording like this, but that kind of thing could happen. So if they ended up getting pregnant, I wouldn't have a problem with any of them taking this, because again, it's plant extracts, pretty safe stuff. So, but again, it's that's a customer decision based on doing your research and things like that. So, um, please touch on the corn piece. I know you said non-GMO in your video, but good to hit on that as traditional corn is so bad. Yeah, so we use one of the ingredients in here is called phytospherics, is the brand name of it. It's a phytoglycogen, so a plant glycogen. Um, and it's extracted from corn. So in this product, in stress chocolate, there's also a corn ingredient. But this comes from the corn leaf. Sometimes I call it corn grass. That's when the corn plant is just like 2 weeks, well, less than a month old. I mean, it looks like grass, like sprouting out of the ground. So that's like the leaves of corn. So have you ever gone and picked a corn cob and peel off, you go to husk it and you take the leaves off of it, not the silk, not that stringy stuff. The corn silk can actually be good for kidney function and things like that. But the corn grass is where we get the main ingredient in stress chocolate. Not when it's a whole corn cob like that, only when it's 2, 3, 4 weeks old. It's really high in that 6 MBOA ingredient that helps to help your body make more melatonin. Um, this is a little bit different. This does come from the corn cob, the phytospherics. It comes from the kernel of corn. So the stuff that you would eat, that's where it comes from. So it's non-genetically modified, but it's a special strain of corn that is a really sweet kind of corn. So glycogen is like a long sugar molecule. It's not sugar because it's a very complex sort of carbohydrate chain, what we call a polysaccharide. So they have a very unique strain of corn that they can extract this phytoglycogen from, and that phytoglycogen becomes a really unique prebiotic fiber to your microbiome, and you make a ton of short chain fatty acids when you eat this stuff. So it's there as a way to amplify your production of short chain fatty acids, which do everything in your body, right? They help your brain, they help your gut lining, they help your metabolism and your blood sugar control, they help your appetite, they help your immune system, they do all kinds of wonderful things. So having more phytoglycogen is a good thing, and we get it from this unique strain of corn that is a non-genetically modified form of sweet corn. Okay, so there's that. Um, can Zenith replace other products I am taking? Uh, Definitely. If you're taking other products for resilience, for stress, for mood, for focus, for motivation, for all that kind of stuff, all what we put under the umbrella of mental wellness, yeah, this can replace, you know, probably most of that. That was the whole idea of trying to cram in as many things as possible to work across that entire gut brain axis in a very coordinated way, right? I don't want people to think that it was just like, a kitchen sink sort of a proposal, or we're just like, yeah, let's throw some of that in. Let's throw some of that in, right? It's very strategically thought out to say, hey, wait a minute. You guys have heard me say, if you have somebody like one of your clients that doesn't feel the way they want to feel, it could be their neurotransmitters in their brain. So by all means, let's do something to those. But it might also be that their neurotransmitters are fine and it's being blocked by cortisol or inflammatory cytokines or something else. So let's also do something for that. And why are you overinflamed? It might be because your immune system is out of balance. Well, why is that out of balance? Well, it might be because you have leaky gut. And why do you have leaky gut? It might be because you're dysbiotic and you have something going on in your gut lumen, like your microbiome balance or your pH environment or something like that. So why not try to come at that systemic problem with a systemic solution? And that's what Zenith is all about. Just sort of tick off all those steps across the gut brain axis. And if you're like a lot of people and you're like, wow, I have some brain fog, I need a Red Bull to help me, or I need something else, you might be doing like the pea shooter kind of a thing, trying to get that one, and it might not be that one, it might be this one over here. So you need a systemic approach, and that's exactly what Zenith is. So I think like we're gonna do a picture sometime with the marketing team to show like, hey, here's two capsules of Zenith, and here's I don't know, 10 capsules or 12 capsules of other stuff, and this one's for your energy, and this one's for your mood, and this one's for your sleep quality, and this one's for your mental focus, and and then boom, these two do all of that. Okay. Um, okay, this is a longer one. Um, and then I'll answer the Canada, Australia, EU question, and then I'll go into the chat. Okay, so this one says, how does it compare, same or different, to other products you have formulated, such as, and I'm gonna read these, Quad Biotic, which is referring to a product that I formulated called GBX Fit, which was a biotic product for weight loss. Fundamentals, Mentabiotics, Happy Juice, Mood Plus. So all of these products were all either award winners or finalists for big awards in the nutraceutical industry. So they're all good products. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. I formulated them. I talked about them for years and years and years. Even today, 8 years after most of those were formulated, they're still a lot better than almost anything else on the market. They're still really, really good products. And if you love those products, you should absolutely keep taking those products. This one, though, Zenith, is a next generation way of doing what all of those products do. So the quad biotic is a little bit different. This one is also four different biotics: probiotic, prebiotic, postbiotic, phytobiotic. But those ones in the previous product were geared towards weight loss, appetite control, blood sugar modulation, that kind of stuff. These ones are all geared towards mental well-being, in all the ways that I've already said, right? Mental focus, motivation, mood, etc. So there's that. You could like if you're not getting what you need from those products and you want a sort of a newer, more advanced approach, by all means try Zenith because it's two capsules, really easy. Those other products, because they use older technology, it's not necessarily bad technology, it's just older. It's like the big bulky ingredients like I was describing before. So it has to be in a powder. It has to be in a stick pack. Um, the thing that you get here is that it's, not only is it just two capsules, easier than mixing things up, but you also don't have to pay for all the extra packaging, all the extra flavors, all the extra sweeteners, that kind of stuff. Like I love making flavored products, right? Here's a flavored product. Here's a flavored product. The flavors and the sweeteners are generally as much or more than the active ingredients that you're looking for. So if you have an opportunity to just get the active ingredients in a really simple way to take it, you automatically you lower your friction, so to speak, right? It's less expensive, it's easier to deliver. You don't have to worry about some people like watermelon and other people like tutti frutti or like whatever those flavor preferences are, right? There's no flavor preferences with this, and it makes it less expensive. So this, even though it's newer tech, it's probably half the price of different packages of the older stuff. So again, those aren't bad products anymore. It's just the difference between like, older model car, newer model car with all the new features. Okay, so there's that, and now there's been a couple questions in the chat about this too. When are we going to get it in Canada, Australia, and the EU? And this is a kind of a loaded question. Um, it's hard to get some of these ingredients into those other regions of the world, and the reason is um, Health Canada, EFSA, which is the European version of Health Canada, and well, what's the one in Australia that I'm blanking on? It's not TSA. Why is that stuck in my head? Um, you guys know what I mean, right? The regulatory body in Australia. They have regulations about different ingredients. And so one of my big pet peeves that I've had for, the 30 years that I've been in the industry is when I formulate a product in the United States, I formulate the best product that I can. I use the best ingredients, the branded ingredients, the ones with the research at the right levels, and then we try to introduce it into another country and they'll go, oh, you can't use that species of pine bark, or that strain of bacteria hasn't been approved here yet. You have to use this other undifferentiated species, or something like that. And it's really, really frustrating because what you have to do is you basically have to dumb down your product, or dumb down is probably not the right way to say it. You have to change your formula, so that you still try to make the best formula that is allowed in that country, but it's still not as good as the original, So that's always, like, as a scientist, that's always been a pain point of mine, where you have to say to the people in that country, you have to go, well, it's the best one you can have. It's close to the one over there, but we can't give you that one. And so the workaround that we're going to do is, instead of this being available directly to customers in those regions, Australia, EU, and Canada, we're going to do a wholesale program. So there's a little kind of a loophole where we can do a wholesale program where somebody in Canada or Australia or the EU can buy a box of 6. That's how they're going to be shipped wholesale wise. And then we can ship you 6 bottles all at once, and then you can do what you will with them. Like, you can use them for yourself, you can use them with your clients, you can use them with your customers, whatever you want to do. And at that wholesale pricing, you'll get the markup differential, right? So you'll buy it at wholesale, you'll be able to sell it at whatever level of retail that you want. Um, but it's it's different than the affiliate program. The reason that we have to do it that way is, one, because of the regulations. We want to make sure that we are within the regulations, right? That we're doing everything sort of above board. But the other reason is that shipping, customs, duties make and exchange rates make individual bottle shipping prohibitively expensive. And so if we can do it like this with a wholesale program, we end up spreading all that extra cost over 6 bottles. And so it makes it a lot more affordable for you and your customers. Okay. So details on that will be coming sort of like mid-November. We want to get through this pre-launch of Zenith here, and then get everything shipped out. And then once that dust settles, then we're going to introduce the wholesale program. Okay, so just please sit tight, please be patient, but it's coming, and I think you're gonna like it. So I've got I think 5 more questions left, but I'm gonna go into the chat and see if there's anything here that I can answer first. So I think I get that one. Um, let's see. Karen's get this one. My friend's son in his mid 20s has been diagnosed as bipolar. They always had breaks from reality, on meds now, but is flat. Exactly. The bipolar meds, that's what they do. They really flatten things out. Also has always had gut issues. I'm recommending Zenith and wonder if there's anything I should tell her about expectations. Oh, this is one of the questions, actually, about, like, what should I expect and how quickly it works. So let me save that piece for when I get to that question, Karen. But this is one of the big problems with a lot of the like antidepressant, anti-anxiety kinds of drugs out there, is that you feel flat, like you don't feel anything. And that can be a good thing if before you were feeling like thoughts of suicide kind of stuff, right? If you, like, you don't want to have those thoughts, so let's squash those thoughts. But in doing so, you kind of squash everything. And then flat is and I don't know if people who can't see the chat right now, she wrote flat in capital letters, capital F, capital L, capital A, capital T. That's exactly how people feel. They don't feel bad anymore, but they don't feel good. They just feel nothing. It's just like a wet blanket over everything. And that's no way to go through life. And the fact that he has gut issues also is actually pretty common. And this just speaks to this whole new paradigm that we talk about, that what's happening up here in the brain is in large part caused by what's happening in the gut. And those two brains are talking to each other all the time. So if you have gut problems, you're very likely going to have brain problems, and vice versa. Leaky gut, leaky brain. That whole story. Like this sounds like this person could be a wonderful candidate for this kind of thing. But if they were in such a bad situation with breaks from reality and things like that, the like it's not like an even switch to say, oh, stop taking the drug, start taking this dietary supplement, right? It's not going to be that level of potency. It might be something where they need to work with their healthcare practitioner, whoever their prescriber is, to wean themselves off of whatever that medication is and wean themselves on to something like Zenith. A lot of step down therapy, a lot of times what they try to do is they'll say add a supplement and let that sort of kick in, right? Take it for a few weeks, take it for a month, and then as you're feeling better, you're feeling more balanced. Now let's try to step you down from that medication. And a typical step down regimen would be you're at 100% of the drug. Now we're going to come down by 25% ish, depending on what the dosing of the drug is. We're going to come down by some percentage and see how you go for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And if you're good, maybe we'll come down by another 25%. So now we're down to half and we'll see how you go. And then if you're still good, we'll come down a little bit more. And so you step down and you might step down to like you might do 3 steps and then go, "Ooh, I felt better on that last step." And then you go back up and then you stay there for a while. And it's some combination of the medication and the supplement, right? So and that's a good thing because then you're taking less supplement, you're feeling better, you're not feeling flat, you're feeling more, motivated and resilient and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's always, Karen, that's always a really individualized situation. You can't sort of say like, "Oh, here's the recipe that works for everybody every time." It's a very individualized situation. Okay. And then I'll have more to say about that in just a second in terms of phased benefits. Jody, yeah, the recording from Friday is available. It's up on YouTube right now. Um, and it should be like if you go to my YouTube page, Dr. Sean Talbot, it'll be one of the most recent 2 or 3 videos that's up there. Okay, and if you have trouble finding it, just ask and I'll send you the direct link. Um, let's see. How long does the pre-sale last? We're gonna run it until for 2 weeks. So if we launched it on the 10th, then it lasts until the 25th will be the last day. So 24th, I guess, would be 2 weeks, but 25th is when it's gonna shut off. And for the pre-sale, for the like the one like really cool offer that we're doing for the pre-launch promotion is if you buy 2 bottles on Subscribe and Save, you get a free 90-day subscription to the community area with the discussion, with access to all these calls, with the archive of 80 whatever coaching calls that are up there. So it's a pretty good deal. And if you're already in the community and you're already paying the monthly fee, you'll just get 3 months for free. We'll just pause your payments for 3 months, which is really good deal for everybody. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want people to try the product, and I want them to get the benefits. But then I also want to educate them along those 90 days, right? So they get access to like why is gut health important? What does the microbiome do? Yeah, what is this gut brain axis? How is this product helping support my gut brain axis? Like, you know, deep dives about all these ingredients. Like, I want people to get educated so that over those 90 days, so they understand what they're taking and why they're taking it and why I feel this way and why I used to feel that way and how I can share it with other people through the affiliate program and how I can build a business as a mental wellness coach. And like, I really want to wrap that whole community instead of being like, I don't want to just throw this up on Amazon and hope it sell. I mean, I hope it sells, but I want it to be a little bit more than that. So that's why we're trying to do that. Any plans to update our affiliate shop so it has some of the good product info that you have on Three Waves? Um, I don't know. I thought that yes. I'm gonna make a note of that. I guess so you have the same content in your affiliate links. Is that what you're thinking, Karen? Okay, let me see about that. Need more. Yes. One of the things that we're creating little I think we used to call them like product information pages. Like we're creating collaterals for affiliates to use to send out to people to say like, "Hey, here's this cool ingredient that's in Zenith. You might want to learn more about it." Like that kind of stuff that you can use as like like marketing educational material. So those are in the works. Okay. All right. So let's see what these other last few questions are. Um, how is Zenith different from other gut brain supplements? I think we kind of covered that. It's very unique ingredients. They're all clinically validated, right? When you look at the supplement facts panel, you're going to see every single ingredient is a branded ingredient, meaning it has good research on it. It has, clinical evidence. It has great quality control. It has great sourcing story, all that kind of stuff. That's becoming, much to my dismay, that is becoming less and less uh, prominent in the dietary supplement industry. You're seeing more and more companies go generic and just say, oh, we have ashwagandha, but not the one that was used in the trial. Oh, we have pine bark, but not the one used in the trial. Oh, we have probiotics, but not the strains that were used in the clinical trials. Like, you're seeing more and more of that instead of less and less of that, which is what I would think with a more educated, customer base out there. But we want to make sure that we did that, right? All the really good stuff at the right levels. So there, that's a big piece of it. um and then the other piece is that it's, like I said before, it kind of checks all the boxes across the whole gut brain axis. It's not just, one ingredient working on one part to try to solve the problem. Here, this answers the other part of your question, Karen. How soon will I feel a difference? So this was specifically formulated with this idea of phased benefits in mind, that there are some ingredients in the product that work really, really quickly, like theanine. Well, suntheanine is the one that we use, and pine bark, the enzogenol that we use, the New Zealand pine bark. And the Vigortonin, the green ephedra, the ephedra viridis. Those all work really, really quickly. So when you take the product, you're going to notice, not immediately. I was just going to snap my fingers. It's about an hour onset of action, maybe 2 hour onset of action. But when you take it, you're going to feel something really quickly. And the feel something is going to be getting into that zone, getting into that state of relaxed alertness, right? Where you're calm, but you're not suppressed, where you're energized, but you're not overstimulated, right? Right in that zone where you want to be mentally and physically, right? Mental edge kind of thing. That's something you can do really, really quick. And part of that is because how the ingredients work. The other part of that is that that's just how quickly that mood state can be modified. Another mood state, like your overall well-being, you can't change that in an hour or two. That's something that might take a month or two. And so, like, that is getting worked on by other ingredients, like the probiotic strains. And then there's sort of interim um, effects where, things like resilience and brain fog and sleep quality, those might be a couple of days to a couple of weeks. So, like, the phased benefit is that you'll feel somewhat better quickly, and then you'll feel more better, sort of medium term, and then you'll feel more better and more better and more better. And I said this on the call. You're not going to get better, feeling better into infinity. You'll eventually reach your new state of normal, where, like, you've leveled up and now you're better than you were before. And this is a state you can maintain, right? It's moving up that mental wellness continuum from, a 5 to a 6 to a 7 to a 9.5. And that's phased benefit. So when people say, how quickly until I feel something, I kind of want to go back and say, like, well, like, what do you want to feel? There's a time course for that. And so we can describe it that way. Okay. Um, what makes the ingredients in Zenith so special? We just kind of covered that already. And if you go to the website, if you go to threewaveswellness.com and you scroll down, you will see, like, really nice graphics that you can mouse over, that show you, like the highlights of what all those different ingredients do. And then we have our technical data sheet posted on the website. So you can go and you can read, to your heart's content. It's got to be about 30 pages long, with all the ingredients, what the science says, what the references are. If you want to go get the source material, there's a lot of really, really good stuff to say about these ingredients. Can I take Zenith with my other supplements or medications? Yes. Like I said before, it will probably replace a lot of your other supplements. So that, that's one aspect of it. And then, when it comes to prescriptions, there isn't anything in here that is going to be like what I call a red flag ingredient that we know has interactions or interferences, or like any problematic stuff with any classes of prescription medications. There are ingredients like that, that you might find in a mental wellness supplement, like What would be a good example? Ginseng can sometimes raise blood pressure in people who are hypertensive. Um, there's some ingredients that can interfere with blood sugar regulators, or sometimes with the metabolism of antidepressants. Like St. John's wort is a great example. It's a really good herbal antidepressant, but it interferes with antidepressant prescriptions. It interferes with birth control pills. It interferes with a whole bunch of other medications, and so it's not something you can take unless you're completely free of prescriptions. But the ingredients in Zenith don't have that kind of interference or problematic nature. And then last question that I have on my list is, why is it called Zenith? Um, and the whole Zenith thing is like, this was about peak performance, like what we call on the bottle everyday excellence. This idea of it's not really for athletes per se, but it helps you get the most out of your mind and body performance. And I think that's what everybody's looking for, right? You want to be as energetic as possible, but you don't want to be overstimulated. You want to be like calm and resilient and collected when you're in a stressful situation, but you don't want to be tranquilized. You want to have good quality sleep, but you don't want to knock yourself out and risk being groggy the next day. Like you just want to be sort of zoom in that zone, be able to surf the waves. That's what everyday excellence is all about. Um, and zenith means like the peak, but we didn't want to say peak performance because that sounds too like sporty, you know it, to my ear. And then the other part of it is we want to have the play on zen, zen, be sort of in that zen zone. So peak performance, but with zen. Okay, that's what everyday excellence is all about. um so anyway, that's all the questions that I had. Let me know, you guys, if you have other questions. Like, email them in, put them in the discussion group in the community area. Um, and let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Please speak to possible symptoms for those super sensitive patients when they try Zenith. Yeah, so Jody and I have talked about this over the years. There are some patients, some of your clients maybe. I have some family members who actually fall into this category. When you give them something that should be relaxing for them, it might make them agitated. If you give them something that's energizing, it might make them like sleepy. It might almost knock them out. My sister-in-law sometimes is an opposite reactor. So one of my favorite products that I've ever formulated for the old company had ashwagandha in it. And ashwagandha for most people, like 90% of people who take it, ashwagandha can be a really nice kind of calmer, right? Takes the edge off your stress, lets you sort of, navigate stressful situation. Um it's not really an anti-anxiety effect. It's a little different than that, but ashwagandha calms you down. Ashwagandha for her makes her angry and irritable, and that happens in about 10% of people. And so, once you take it, you take one of those products and you go, yeah, I didn't feel calm. My mood wasn't better. I was angry and snapping at people. I felt terrible. I was irritable. So that's an opposite reaction. Theanine sometimes can give an opposite reaction. So theanine is supposed to get you into that relaxed alertness zone. And in some people, it can make you too sleepy. And some people, it can make you like almost feel like you had a caffeine dose, right? So instead of getting like 50-50 of relaxed alertness, you get a lot of relaxed or you get a lot of alertness, and that's not what you're going for. That's also about 10% of people. There's no way to kind of predict who that's going to be to begin with. Um, so it's not a placebo effect. It's not like a weird, I mean, it is kind of it's a, I was going to say it's not a weird reaction. It's not a weird reaction. It's also not, it's not a fake reaction. Like, it happens enough where we know it's a real thing, but there's no way to kind of predict it. And when it does happen, it's in a small percentage of people. And if that happens, what I generally will recommend to somebody is to cut down to half a dose. Usually what happens is that their body at half a dose won't be having that reaction. you won't be having that opposite reaction, but your body's adapting to whatever that new state is. So you might be able to go like sort of like almost like sub side effect dose at half dose, let the body adjust to it, and then they can go up to the full dose, and then they get the actual effect that you're looking for. I hope I said that clear enough, right? Where you back off the dose, don't take it away all the way, right? If you go down to zero, then their body's not going to have any adaptation. If you go down to half, the body still adapts, but doesn't have the opposite effect. And you do that for a week or two, and then introduce the full dose, and they're usually as expected at that point. Okay. Um, any time frame on the mental wellness questionnaire? I talked to our tech guys on Wednesday, and they were going to put together a plan for sending it out to people. So what's today? Today's Tuesday. I'll talk to them again tomorrow,